Money won't make you happy, but you can buy so many tranquilizers you won't know the difference. Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City. And tonight we are going to be doing an audio commentary for the 1960 film Surprise Package, starring Yul Brenner, Mitzi Gaynor, and Noel Coward, released in 1960, directed by Stanley Donen, and based on a book by Art Buchwald. Okay, I'm ready to get this over with. We are paused on Columbia Pictures Corporation Presents. Here is the link for the movie. It was uploaded only 2 days ago on YouTube. So please give credit to Founding Film for uploading the film just in time so I can do this. I thought somebody else had uploaded the film a year or so ago, because the truth of the matter is, and well, actually forget that. We'll just go ahead and get started here, but I'll leave this up for a few more minutes. So this is Mitzi Gaynor's penultimate film and penultimate performance. Unfortunately, it's very, very low in terms of her filmography. In fact, I wouldn't hesitate to call it her penultimate worst film. It only barely escapes the absolute bottom. There's one film that I would say is worse than Surprise Package if you were going to do a Mitzi Gaynor ranking, which I intend to do. And yeah, Surprise Package is very, very low. So why don't we go ahead and get started here, because I'm more than ready to knock this out. This is a 99-minute movie. There's some rain here. I was having some tech issues earlier. Hopefully that won't be the case this time. But at any rate, why don't we go ahead and get started? So we're paused on Columbia Pictures Corporation Presents of Surprise Package, and we will start on 3, 2, 1, and play. No Columbia logo for some reason. A Stanley Donen production. Yes, indeed. And here we have a weird animated sequence which has cut out heads of both Yul Brenner and Mitzi Gaynor on what look like a bunch of circles, blobbed together. This is, in my opinion, this is actually kind of lazy. I mean, it's just, yeah, this is a pretty ridiculous title sequence. And even some of the weaker films in Mitzi's filmography, are not as weak as this. This is just weird, and it doesn't really give us any, well, I mean, okay, we see people in windows with guns. Okay, I mean, that's all you're going to give us right here. And what, a guy wearing a crown, and based on a book by Art Buchwald, screenplay by Harry Kunitz, director of photography Christopher Chalice, BSc, and main title designed by Maurice Binder. So yeah, he definitely went on to do the James Bond title sequences, and you could probably see, yeah, I can see the James Bond producers watching Surprise Package and like, hey, that's the guy we want to do the title sequences. Music by Muir Matheson, supervised by Muir Matheson, who also conducted the very famous Bernard Herrmann score for Vertigo. And produced and directed by Stanley Donen, the director of Singing in the Rain, one of the great musicals of all time. And yet this is not a musical. As a matter of fact, there's only one song in the movie. And we're going to start a Surprise Package in upstate New York. So, first time I watched this, I stopped halfway through and I never finished it. I don't know if that was because I was bored. I don't know if it was due to the fact that there were other things I wanted to do, or if or it could have been a combination of those and any other reason. I do not remember. What I do remember is that I was indeed definitively not laughing at anything in this movie. This is supposed to be a comedy, and it's a caper film. Starring Yul Brenner in a role that this is not a Yul Brenner character. I mean, he plays a gangster, and here's the thing: he's a good actor. And while I'm sure he can knock out a gangster performance, this for some reason his thick accent is an issue. It's hard to understand what Yul Brenner is saying half the time, which is a huge issue. I mean, granted, I mean there are subtitles or closed captioning, but you know, even still, this is a very, very, very difficult performance. I mean, you could be the biggest Yul Brenner fan in the world, and like I said, I think his accent is a huge liability for this role. I mean, you know, I mean, you know, gangsters, you know, usually being Italian, but just in this case, I mean, just half the time he's either unintelligible or just incomprehensible, or both. I think those are the same, mean the same thing. So, but you know what I mean. It's a huge, huge distraction off the bat, and it's one of the reasons why I had very much a difficulty getting through this movie. Second time I watched it, I was able to get through the halfway point, and by the time we get to the climax, which does involve a song and dance, a very, very brief one, it's too little too late. I mean, there's very little here that I found funny. I mean, the one-liner that I opened with, that was essentially the only line I found funny in the whole movie, about the tranquilizers. That was the one funny line that I discovered in Surprise Package in the entire 99 minutes of this movie. It may not be terrible, but that's the best thing you can say about it. The thing about Yul Brenner is that he talks with a weird accent throughout the whole movie. He smokes a lot of cigars. Oh my God, the number of cigars he smokes in this movie are, you know, insane. And I do think that's another distraction. I mean, you want to call it a character trait. I think it's a distraction in this movie. There's nothing about Yul Brenner's performance here. And I know he tried. I mean, Mitzi Gaynor tried. Yul Brenner tried, you know, and I'm sure Donen even tried, okay? I'm sure they all tried with this, but unfortunately, because of the fact that this is a thoroughly unmemorable script, based on a story that I'm not familiar with, but I am familiar with the author. And the author of the book that this is based on, well, I mean, the name of the book, first and foremost, is A Gift from the Boys, which was published in 1958 by Art Buchwald. Now, as soon as I saw Art Buchwald's name, I was thinking, oh, no, because there's one thing I know Art Buchwald from, and it's not good. But he was an American humorist, best known for his column in the Washington Post. At the height of his popularity, it was published nationwide as a syndicated column in more than 500 newspapers. His column focused on political satire and comedy. He had first started writing as a paid journalist in Paris after World War II, where he wrote a column on restaurants and nightclubs, Paris After Dark, for the Paris Herald Tribune. He was part of a large American expatriate community in those years. After his return to the United States in 1962, he continued to publish his columns and books for the rest of his life. He received the Pulitzer Prize in 1982 for outstanding commentary, and in 1991 was elected to the American Academy Institute of Arts and Letters, in addition to other awards. Buchwald had a cameo in Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief. Near the beginning of the movie, an issue of the Paris Herald Tribune is shown in close-up to highlight a column bylined by Buchwald about jewel thefts on the French Riviera, which sets up the plot. Coincidentally, a Surprise Package is a movie about a crown that belongs to a so-called king on a Greek island that is going to be stolen. And here is Mitzi Gaynor. We see her only briefly in the beginning, and we don't see her return until pretty much the 40-minute mark, where she just basically tells the cab driver, hey, I mean, I don't care if you're married or not, you're not going to be able to see me undress in the backseat of a cab. And so she plays Yul Brenner's Moll, who also happens to be a stripper. Now, for those of you who may get your hopes up, no, we do not see Mitzi Gaynor strip in this movie. Oh, sure, it would have been nice. It would have been, it would have, woke me up at the very least. No, I'm just kidding. Look, this movie came out in 1960. The production code was dying. I mean, The Apartment, which won the Best Picture Oscar this year, is, one of the great comedies of all time. And, you watch that movie now, and it may be hardly anything to squeal over, but oh no, I mean, affairs and business environments and using apartments to have these affairs and everything. Oh yeah, the apartment broke all that. But Surprise Package is a little bit of a tease. Okay, one of the few things I like about this movie is the lighting. That one shot of Mitzi Gaynor sitting there with the light illuminating her is stunning. Even in black and white, it's stunning. And the thing is, one of the major downfalls of this movie is that it wasn't filmed in color. That would have been, I think, a great benefit considering the setting, because we're supposed to be on this gorgeous tropical island. And there's even a line spoken by Mitzi later, which really puts the salt in the wound. And that, why couldn't they have filmed this in color? I mean, by 1960, black and white films were pretty much done. I mean, the only ones still shooting black and white movies were the low budget films. And of course, there were still a few instances where studios were, very, still like, we can make one film in black and white because this is probably not going to make much money. So I don't think it would be a massive risk if we don't. This film, on the other hand, it would have been a massive benefit if it was filmed in color, just for the setting alone. Art Buchwald had also contributed to the English dialogue of Jacques Tati's Playtime. Buchwald also had a cameo role in a 1972 episode of Moving Target of the TV series Mannix. He was shown in Frederick Wiseman's 1983 The Store, delivering a tribute to Stanley Marcus, the store's owner. However, what Art Buchwald is known nowadays is rather embarrassing, at least from my point of view. Basically, what happened was this. The 1988 film Coming to America, which was released by Paramount and starring Eddie Murphy, well, apparently that film was the subject of a civil suit called Buchwald versus Paramount, which the humorist Art Buchwald filed in 1990 against the film's producers on the grounds that the film's idea was stolen from his 1982 script treatment about a rich, despotic African potentate who comes to America for a state visit. Paramount had optioned the treatment from Buchwald, and John Landis was attached as director and Eddie Murphy as the lead. But after 2 years of the development hell, Paramount abandoned the project in March of 1985. And in 1987, Paramount began working on Come to America based on a story by Eddie Murphy. Buchwald won the breach of contract action and court ordered monetary damages. The parties had settled the case out of court before an appeal going to trial. And I thought there was... Okay. In 1982, Buchwald, I'm not going to tell the whole story because this is not a Coming to America commentary, obviously. But there was one thing I wanted to quote right here from the director John Landis. In Julia D. Agnolo's Valens 2008 book, John Landis is quoted as saying that Art Buchwald's case against Paramount was without merit, going to state the following, quote, I preface this by saying that I don't know Art Buchwald, and I have nothing against him. I should point out that for all the media attention to that case, no one ever mentions Barry Blaustein and David Sheffield, the men who actually wrote the script. Every movie I've been involved in with that was a big hit, had people suing the studio saying it was their idea. We live in a very litigious society. You can sue anybody for anything here. Landis also provided the following responses to why Buchwald's lawsuit received more attention in the press than other similar lawsuits. Well, because it was Art Buchwald. He is an old East Coast media darling. The other lawsuits came from less famous people. I remember on Animal House, there were 4 or 5 lawsuits, and Universal just settled them as that was cheaper than fighting and even prevailing. Art Buchwald is not only East Coast, but he's also a newspaperman. The press is going to take his side. The irony of that case is the only people that his lawsuit benefited were Eddie Murphy and me, because it forced Paramount to open their books, unquote. Now, so as soon as I saw Art Buchwald's name in this movie, I was like, oh no, I don't think this is going to be, I don't think this is going to be that good. But here again, I passed on reading the book, and after I watched the movie, it pretty much confirmed for me that I just did not find this funny at all. Whatever topical references there were, I didn't get. And, the truth of the matter is, even if I were to understand them, I don't think that would increase my appreciation of this movie any more than it already is, which is hardly anything. I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that a surprise package with no surprise in it, I mean, you get nothing but profound disappointment, and that's what this is. Now, the actor who plays the Morales right here, the chief of police who is corrupt, is an actor by the name of Eric Pullman, who played Morales. He was a German actor who was active in the Austrian theater, film, and television, who worked mostly in the United Kingdom, and he's known for voicing Ernst Stavro Blofeld, the primary antagonist of the James Bond series in the films From Russia with Love and Thunderball. Well, there's another James Bond connection for you. Born in 1939, he followed his fiancée and later wife, actress Lieselot Göttinger, best known in the UK for playing the concentration camp guard in the war films Odette and Carve Her Name with Pride, into exile in London. Until mid-1941, both were kept in an internment camp. After their release, Eric took part in propaganda broadcasts against the Nazis on the BBC World Service. In order to earn a living, the Pullmans temporarily took positions in the household of the Duke of Bedford, Lieselotte as a cook, and Eric, as he was known, as a butler. After the war, he began a career on the London stage. Among other roles, he played Peachum in Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill's The Threepenny Opera. From the end of the 1940s, Pullman was often present in film and television productions, taking supporting roles in various adventure and crime films, and appearing occasionally in comedies. His large frame and massive features typecast him in roles as master criminals and spies, or conversely as police officers or detectives, as well as other figures of authority. He was frequently cast in foreign roles, playing Turks, Italians, Arabs, Greeks, or Asians. He also played King George I, King George II in Disney's Rob Roy, The Highland Rogue, and King George III twice. One of his earliest film appearances was in Carol Reed's classic Third Man. He also played supporting roles in such British films as They Who Dare, Chance of a Lifetime, Reach for the Sky, and Espresso Bongo, same year as Surprise Package in 1960. He also appeared in U.S. productions, notably Moulin Rouge, Mogambo, Lust for Life, and 55 Days of Peking. Twice he appeared in films directed by Richard Thorpe and starring Robert Taylor, The Adventures of Quentin Durward, and The House of the Seven Hawks. He displayed his comedic talents in films like Gentlemen Marry Brunettes with Jane Russell, as a lecherous Arab sheik in The Bells of St. Trinians, and the Fat Man in Carry On Spine in The Return of the Pink Panther in 1975. Pullman also provided the voice of the unseen head of Spectre, Blofeld, in the two James Bond films From Russia with Love and Thunderball. In the 1960s and 70s, he relaunched his German-speaking career in German and Austrian film and television productions. He had a guest role in the popular crime series Der Kommissar and Derek, and also appeared in television plays for ORF and Bayreuther Rundfunk, under the direction of Franz Joseph Wield, in addition to the Defense Council, 1961. In 1978, he worked with the actor-director Maximilian Schell in an Austro-German film production of Odon von Horwirth's play Tales from the Vienna Woods. The film was shown at the 1979 London Film Festival that year. During the final rehearsals for his second appearance at the Salzburg Festival, Pullman suffered a heart attack and died the same day in a hotel in Bad Reichenhall. He was 66. He was survived by his children and his second wife, In 2006, the Turner Classic Movies 31 Days of Oscar Festival was based on the theme 360 Degrees of Oscar, based on the game of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, in which TCM chooses an actor who has played a significant role in Oscar history and builds its entire schedule around him. They chose Eric Pullman. He also appeared in stage, amongst other productions, in Henry Cecil's Set Out of Court and Jean Anatoli's Point of Departure. And some of the other films he was in are Penny Princess, Moulin Rouge, The Beggar's Opera, The Adventures of Quentin Durward, Anastasia, 1956, A Tale of Two Cities, 1958, Three Crooked Men, 1959, The Devil's Agent. He was also in Where the Spies Are, Foreign Exchange, Tiffany Jones, and Tales from the Vienna Woods was his very, very last role, although he was also in Ashanti, the action-adventure film directed by Richard Fleischer and starring Michael Caine and Peter Ustinov, and Beverly Johnson displaying herself quite provocatively on the poster for Ashanti. I'm not going to describe it. You can go look at it yourself, but oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting that at all. And this actor who plays Clematis, who is talking with Yul Brenner right here, is an actor by the name of Warren Mitchell. And he was in certain films like The Crawling Eye and that kind of thing. Jabberwocky, Carry On Cleo, Last of the Summer Wine, certain films like that. He doesn't have a huge, huge resume. But he's, he's kind of amusing in this throwaway role. I mean, I just didn't find this story particularly amusing or interesting or clever or witty. I just didn't care. I didn't care about Yul Brenner's character. I didn't think that he was really charming in any way. Like I said, his accent in this case is a turnoff, even though he's great in other movies, namely The King and I, as well as The Magnificent Seven. I mean, he's had some great movies, but Surprise Package is just not one of them. And it's, he's trying to be funny. He is trying to be lighthearted and kind of a little bit of a goof. He is trying to put something in there and make this work. I can tell. Does he earn his check? Sure, he earns his check. But at the same time, it's still a very, very unmemorable performance. I mean, you could be the biggest Yul Brenner fan. It's hard to defend this movie. I mean, it's just hard to defend this because he's just not funny and the movie's not funny. But very, very soon we're going to meet our the king of this Greek island, played by Noel Coward, of all people. Probably the last person I expected to show up in a film like this would be Noel Coward, of all people. Oh, this is one that, well, actually, since he's not on screen yet, let me just say that the TV news reporter you saw earlier was an actor by the name of Paul Carpenter. I wanted to mention him real quick, but yeah. He didn't do a lot of films. He started out in the 40s. Yeah, the mid 40s. He did movies like he was also in The Third Man as a international patrol D. The Black Glove, Heat Wave, Duel in the Jungle, BBC Sunday Night Theater, Bonanza, the TV series of The Invisible Man. And then his last film was actually Goldfinger. He was a brigadier at the airport, uncredited. There's a lot of James Bond references with this movie, I got to confess. But here we have, of course, Noel Coward. Yes, the legendary Noel Coward. So much to talk about with him. And I must confess that I do think that he's wasted in this movie. I think everybody is pretty much wasted. I think Yul Brenner and Mitzi and Noel Coward, all tremendously talented, actors, and they're wasted on, I think, a highly, highly uninteresting and a story that there's a dearth of feeling, of emotion, of anything. That the comedy is almost non-existent. I don't understand exactly what exactly did they expect us to find funny here. I mean, that's a question I asked over and over. Like, I mean, we'll see it later, but like a perfect example is like there's a shot of Yul Brenner and Mitzi Gaynor playing Scrabble, and it shows on there that he can't spell college. He spells it Colige. And I was just thinking, wait a minute, is that really the level of humor this film is going for? And I am actually convinced it is. This movie is a bad joke. It's a tease. I said that before. It's a tease. I mean, there's absolutely nothing inside this package, let alone a surprise. Okay. It's just empty. It's just empty. I mean, there's a dearth of humor. There's a dearth of emotion. There is nothing aside from a musical number that's too late, too little, too late, and maybe one or two lines. This movie is just a waste of time. And I say that with all respect to the people involved that made it: director Stanley Donen, Yul Brenner, Noel Coward, and Mitzi Gaynor. This was a waste of time. It just, unfortunately, I mean, whatever they were going for with this movie, like, yeah, he looks at the globe. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll show you what I own right here on the globe. It's like, well, I guess it's too slow for this certain globe. Oh, whatever. Like, none of this is funny. I mean, and that's the thing. I looked over at IMDb, and there was maybe 2 or 3 people that found this movie funny. The rest of it kind of dismissed it with not so much prejudice, but rather just, it's lifeless. It's a lifeless movie. I mean, there's no energy, there's no spark to it. And funnily enough, Noel Coward actually says at one point during this conversation, "Oh, I'm not boring you, am I?" Well, actually, you kind of are, sir. You kind of are. And the dialogue isn't helping you one iota, that's for sure. But let's talk about Noel Coward. There's so much to talk about with Noel Coward. He was an English playwright, composer, director, actor, singer, known for his wit, flamboyance, and what Time magazine called a sense of personal style, a combination of cheek and chic, pose and poise. Well, he has none of that in Secret Surprise Package. I'll tell you that right now. There isn't a trace of that Noel Coward described by Time magazine anywhere in this movie. Coward attended a dance academy in London as a child, making his professional stage debut at the age of 11. As a teenager, he was introduced into the high society in which most of his plays would be set. Coward achieved enduring success as a playwright, publishing more than 50 plays from his teens onwards. Many of his works, such as Hay Fever, Private Lives, Designed for Living, Present Laughter, and Blitz Spirit, have remained in the irregular theater repertoire. He composed hundreds of songs, in addition to well over a dozen musical theater works, including the operetta Bittersweet and comic reviews, screenplays, poetry, several volumes of short stories, the novel Pomp and Circumstances, and a 3-volume autobiography. Coward's stage and film acting and directing career spanned 6 decades, during which he starred in many of his own works as well as those of others. At the outbreak of the Second World War, Coward volunteered for war work, running the British propaganda office in Paris. He also worked with the Secret Service, seeking to use his influence to persuade the American public and government to help Britain. Coward won an Academy Honorary Award in 1943 for his naval film drama In Which We Serve. Yes, classic film, and was knighted in 1970. In the 1950s, he achieved fresh success as a cabaret performer, performing his own songs such as Mad Dogs and Englishmen, London Pride, and I Went to a Marvelous Party. Coward's plays and songs achieved new popularity in the 60s and 70s and his work and style continued to influence popular culture. He did not publicly acknowledge his homosexuality, but it was discussed candidly after his death by biographers including Graham Payne. His longtime partner and in Coward's Diaries and Letters, published posthumously. The former Albury Theatre, originally the New Theatre in London, was renamed the Noel Coward Theatre in his honor in 2006. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Noel Coward. But see what else here. I'm not going to be reading all this, but like I said, Coward's career is long. Very, very respected playwright. In 1955, Coward's cabaret act at Las Vegas, recorded live for the gramophone and released as Noel Coward at Las Vegas, was so successful that CBS engaged him to write and direct a series of 3 90-minute television specials for the 1955-56 season. The first of these, together with music, paired Coward with Mary Martin, featuring him in many of the numbers from his Las Vegas act. It was followed by productions of Bliss Spirit, in which he starred with Claude Colbert, Lauren Bacall, and Mildred Natwick, and This Happy Breed with Edna Best and Roger Moore. Despite excellent reviews, the audience viewing figures were moderate. And during the 50s and 60s, Coward continued to write musicals and plays. After the Ball, his 1953 adaptation of Lady Windermere's Fan, was the last musical he premiered in the West End. His last 2 musicals were first produced on Broadway. Sail Away, set on a luxury cruise liner, was Coward's most successful post-war musical, with productions in America, Britain, and Australia. The Girl Who Came to Supper, a musical adaptation of The Sleeping Prince, ran for only 3 months. He directed the successful 1964 Broadway musical adaptation of Bliss Spirit called High Spirits. Coward's late plays include a farce, Look After Lulu, and a tragic comedy study of old age, Waiting in the Wings, both of which were successful despite, quote, critical disdain. Coward argued that the primary purpose of a play was to entertain, and he made no attempt at modernism, which he felt was boring to the audience, though fascinating to the critics. His comic novel, Pomp and Circumstance, about life in a tropical British colony, met with more critical success, and that was released in 1960, the same year as Surprise Package. Coward's final stage success came with Suite in 3 Keys in 1966, a trilogy set in a hotel penthouse suite. He wrote it as a swan song as a stage actor. Quote, "I would like to act once more before I fold my bedraggled wings," unquote. The trilogy gained glowing reviews and did good box office business in the UK. One of his 3 plays, A Song at Twilight, Coward abandoned his customary reticence on the subject and played an explicitly homosexual character. The daring piece earned Coward new critical praise. He intended to star in the trilogy on Broadway, but was too ill to travel. Only 2 of the Suite in 3 Keys plays were performed in New York, with the title changed to No Coward in 2 Keys, starring Hume Cronin. Now, this is a very odd little bit of business here where he basically just goes outside. One of his girlfriends, he has like 3 or 4 girlfriends in this place that he has. And like he asks one of the girls to take off her top. And he's like, no, not here. Just go inside. And then the scene ends. And I'm like, what was the point of all that? Was it just to show that he has young nubile women as beck and call, like the head of Scientology or something? I mean, it just like, so what? I mean, there was no point to that. And here again, being 1960, it's almost like, they're desperate. They want to give the audience some nudity, some ribaldness, something. But no, it's all, here again, lifeless and empty. That's the best way I can describe this movie. Now, in this role right here is George Coulouris as Dr. Panzer. A very interesting name indeed. And the tool, the imperialist, is an old windbag, therefore I will be brief. The great crown of St. Herbert belongs to the People's Republic for the crime of stealing it. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. Yeah, yeah. But this actor right here, whose name is George Coulouris. Here he is, Dr. Panzer. He was born in 1903, passed away in 1989 at the age of 85. Made his stage debut in 1926 with Henry V at the Old Vic. In 28 and 29, he appeared in several productions of the Cambridge Festival Theatre, including Eugene O'Neill's The Hairy Ape. By 1929, he made his first Broadway appearance, followed by his first Hollywood film role in 1933. A major impact on his life was Orson Welles, whom he met in 1936 when they both had roles in the Broadway production of Sidney Kingsley's 10 Million Ghosts. Welles invited Coulouris to become a charter member of the Mercury Theatre, and in 1937, Coulouris performed the role of Mark Antony in the company's debut production of Caesar, an innovative modern dress production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. In 1938, he appeared in the Mercury stage productions of The Shoemaker's Holiday and Heartbreak House, and became part of the repertory company that presented CBS Radio's Mercury Theatre on the Air and its sponsored continuation, The Campbell Playhouse. Also for CBS, he appeared in the radio series Suspense, in the episode The Last Letter of Dr. Bronson. In Citizen Kane, Coulouris played Walter Parks Thatcher, a financier similar to J.P. Morgan. Coulouris and Welles each received a 1941 National Board of Review Award for their performances. During the 40s, Coulouris remained a regular figure on the stage and screen, starring in his own Broadway production of Richard III in 1943. His films in this period include For Whom the Bell Tolls, Between Two Worlds, Mr. Skeffington, and Watch on the Rhine, in which he repeated the role he originated in the Broadway production. He also performed as Robert de Baudricourt in Joan of Arc, starring Ingrid Bergman. While most of his performances are strong ones, usually as a heavier villain, occasionally he could turn his serious characterizations into humorous ones. Thatcher in Citizen Kane is fussy and pompous at times. A better, if brief, for example, was in Mr. Skeffington as Dr. Biles, planning to go on a well-deserved, long-delayed holiday, only to find it delayed again by a selfish, impossible Fanny Skeffington, played by Betty Davis. Coulouris was the first actor to star in the title role of the Bulldog Drum and Radio program on the Mutual Broadcasting System. He returned to Britain after 1950, living first in Putney and later in Hampstead, appeared in more films. Stage work was the most well-regarded and included the title role of King Lear at the Glasgow Citizens Theatre, An Enemy at the People, Sean O'Case's The Plough and the Stars, August Strindberg's The Dance of Death, and Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Later film roles include The Heart of the Matter, Doctor in the House, Papillion, Mahler, and Murder on the Orient Express. He had rare leading roles in the British horror movies The Man Without a Body, 1957, and The Woman Eater in 1958. He played in over 80 films, but radio roles were also numerous, and his television roles included parts in Hancock's Half Hour, Danger Man, and The Prisoner. Other appearances included the recurring role of science fiction writer Harcourt Brown in the ABC serials Pathfinders to Mars and Pathfinders to Venus, which were sequels to earlier serials. He also appeared as Arbiton in the Doctor Who serial The Keys of Marinus. In Me and Orson Welles from 2008, Richard Linklater's period drama set in the days surrounding the premiere of the Mercury Theatre's production of Caesar, Coulouris was played by Ben Chaplin. First movie was in 1933, Christopher Bean, and among other movies, he was in The Son of Robin Hood, King of Kings, Too Many Thieves, The Other People, The Antichrist, and his last movie was actually a 1976 film called The Ritz, directed by Richard Lester and written by Terrence McNally. Now, we'll talk about his assistant, which is a huge guy named Igor Trofim. We saw him earlier when he came from outside, played by an actor named Alf Dean, but we'll see him again later, and we'll talk about him when that happens. But And we're finally going to see Mitzi here in just a minute. She's finally going to come back into the picture at the 40-minute mark. And like I said, this came out right before her last movie, For Love or Money, which came out in '63. This film came out in 1960. And it really, really seemed like that she was getting roles that she was not satisfied with, that she was not happy with. And honestly, I don't blame her. I mean, Happy Anniversary, Surprise Package, and For Love or Money are all very, very weak films. And Mitzi does try. I mean, she certainly does try in both Happy Anniversary and Surprise Package at least. But here again, that musical number just comes too late. It comes really, really late. Yeah, of course he's expecting his millions, but of course Nemesis. Oh, sure, Nemesis. Where's the captain of the But of course he's going to get Mitzi. Well, but look, I'll be perfectly honest. I'd rather take Mitzi than the millions. No, maybe not. I don't know. That is a tough choice, actually. I'd have to brood over that. Let's put it that way. But here, of course, is Mitzi after briefly appearing in the beginning. And see, if this was her actual entrance in the movie, I think it would have been a little bit better. I mean, but and she's not supposed to be. I don't think her character is supposed to be very smart. But of course, she has a lot more common sense than he does, and he's just, he's just hanging around smoking his cigars, and he's about to cry a billion tears because he didn't get his $1 million that he didn't earn, and she even points that out to him, like, you didn't earn the money though. I mean, come on, you can get it back. Just enjoy yourself. You're on a Greek island, for God's sake. Now, see, here's a perfect example of if this was filmed in color. At the very, very least, it would have provided enough eye candy to overcome the stale plot. I mean, I think that the cinematography, had it been filmed in color, it would have given everything just a bit of a boost. Even if the plot doesn't work for you, hey, it was still nice to look at. We got to go to somewhere, and the Greek island is not mentioned. It should be noted that the name of the Greek island is not mentioned in this movie. This is almost impossible to buy. That is just wow. But yeah, apparently this is supposed to be set on the island of Rhodes in Greece. I was going to talk about that for a bit because, well, hey, I mean, how many films do you think was shot at the island of Rhodes? Let's put it that way. But it's the largest of the Dodecanese islands of Greece, and is their historical capital. It is the 9th largest island in the overall Mediterranean Sea. Administratively, the island forms a separate municipality within the Rhodes regional unit, which is part of the South Aegean Administrative Region. The principal town of the island and seat of the municipality is Rhodes. The city of Rhodes had 50,636 inhabitants in 2011. In 2022, the island had a population of 125,113. So they more than doubled their population in 10 years. It is located northeast of Crete, southeast of Athens. Rhodes has several nicknames, such as Island of the Sun, due to its patron sun god Helios, the Pearl Island, and the Island of the Knights, named after the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, who ruled the island from 1310 to 1522. Historically, Rhodes was famous for the Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The medieval old town of the city of Rhodes has been declared a World Heritage Site. Today, it is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Europe. Rhodes became part of the growing empire of Alexander the Great in 332 BC. So yeah, this island has a lot of history. I mean, in 305, Antigonus directed his son Demetrius to besiege Rhodes in its attempt to break its alliance with Egypt. The Rhodians also established their dominance on the shores of Caria, across from their island, which became known as the Rhodian Parala. It extended roughly from the modern city of Mugala in the north and Kalous, bordering Lycia in the south near the present-day Dalyan, Turkey. Rhodes successfully carried on this policy through the course of the 3rd century BC, an impressive achievement for what was essentially a democratic state. By the end of the period, however, the balance of power was crumbling, as declining Ptolemaic power made Egypt an attractive target for Seleucid ambitions. In 395, with the division of the Roman Empire, the long Byzantine period began for Rhodes. In late antiquity, the island was the capital of the Roman province of the Islands, headed by a praesius and encompassing most of the Aegean islands with 20 cities. Correspondingly, the island was also the metropolis of the ecclesiastical province of Cyclades with 11 suffragan sees. Now, see, all this is way more interesting than anything in the surprise package. You know, I could just read the entire history of the island of Rhodes, and I think that would be a hell of a lot more compelling than anything in this movie. I'll just mention just a couple other things here, though. In 1912, Italy seized Rhodes from the Ottomans during the Italo-Turkish War. The island's population was spared the exchange of the minorities between Greece and Turkey. Rhodes and the rest of the Dodecanese Islands were assigned to Italy in the Treaty of Auchi. Turkey ceded them officially to Italy with the 1923 Treaty of Lausanne. It then became the core of their possession of the Isole Italian dell'Ugo. The island was greatly improved, mainly the capital, called Rodi in Italian, under the more than 30 years of the Kingdom of Italy's rule. Thousands of Italian colonists settled in the island, mainly in the capital of Rodi, while some founded farm villages. In the islands was officially proposed the creation in 1940 of the Provincia Italiana di Rodi, and in the late 30s, Mussolini embarked on a program of Italianization, attempting to make the island of Rhodes a transportation hub that would facilitate the spread of Italian culture in Greece and the Levant. The fascist program coincided with improvements to infrastructure. While the government worked at modernization, they also obliterated many historical buildings that did not match their ideal of a modern society. And the island suffered through many governors appointed by the Italian government. As such, in 1938, the Legge Razziale racial laws were passed, mimicking the footsteps of the anti-Semitic policies promoted in other European countries. All Jews who served in the government, including the military, were forced to resign. School children were forced to abandon their studies, and all commerce that included any dealings with Jews was forbidden. In 1949, Rhodes was the venue for negotiations between Israel and Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, concluding with the 1949 armistice agreements. And finally, in 2023, the island was hit by the 2023 Greece wildfires, which forced the largest evacuations in history. Nearly 19,000 people had to evacuate. Okay. I think that's enough about the island of Rhodes, but it's just a shame that because it was actually shot there, that we're not able to see it very well in black and white, and that it would have been a lot better if we saw it in color. I mean, this movie probably would have been just a bit more breezy had it had that color cinematography. And also just because I want to see Mitzi in color, okay? I'm not going to lie. But to give credit to the lighting, whoever lit this movie obviously was kind of in love with Mitzi Gaynor, because he really, really gives her some light that really does illuminate her in so many ways. Like I said, this is far from her best performance, but she does try. She looks good. I mean, the cinematographers made sure that she did look good with the lighting and the shadows and everything. But here again, it's just not funny. There is nothing in this movie that's funny. There's barely anything in this movie that's amusing. And here again, if I had read Art Buchwald's book, maybe I would have gotten more out of it. I don't think so. I really don't think so. And here again, that whole Coming to America lawsuit, it kind of put me off Art Buchwald for life, to be perfectly honest. See, I mean, just imagine what that would have been like in color. I mean, I know it's night and everything, but just, okay, so we see a house out there. I mean, it doesn't really... There's a lot of in this script, there's a lot of moments where characters do things without any explanation whatsoever. That, you know, there's no point to what they're doing. There really isn't. This movie is a massive, massive tease. That's the biggest word I can come up with this movie. It's just a massive tease. Mm. But aside from Rhodes, Greece, it was also made in October 1959 at Shepperton Studios in Shepperton, Surrey, England. And the opening shot of Nico's mansion exterior was at the Great Foster's Hotel in Surrey, England. And soon we're about to meet a, I guess in 1960 somebody would complain, well, it's a spoiler or whatever. I don't think so. But we're about to meet a Hungarian spy that is going to serve as a major function of the plot moving forward, because Mitzi and Yule intend to steal this this crown of jewels that Noel Coward owns on this island. And of course, their motivation is because they lost the $1 million that he was supposed to get back. So, but you got Mitzi. Why are you complaining, dude? I don't know. I got to get a plan. I got to think. It just looks like Yul Brenner has the same facial expression in the entire movie. I'm dead serious about this. He's a good actor. He was really good in The King and I and Magnificent Seven. But here, it's a dud. This entire movie is a dud. And sadly, these talented actors are just really, really wasted. There's no real sensuality exhibited here. There's no chemistry between Mitzi and Yule. It just, I'm sure they enjoyed working with each other. I mean, one thing is for sure, when they were making this movie, they were probably talking a hell of a lot about Rodgers and Hammerstein, because, of course, Yul Brenner was the star of King and I, and Mitzi was the star of South Pacific. So they probably talked a lot about Rodgers and Hammerstein. And see, here is the Hungarian spy I was alluding to, and this is an actor by the name of Guy Deggy. Bring him up real quick. Yeah, he was a Hungarian-born actor who appeared largely in British films and television, as in the 5th episode of the first season of The Saint, depicting Inspector Oscar Kleinhaus. Also making another appearance as the same character in an episode of the 5th series. Another example was his 1960 appearance in the Patrick McGoohan television series Danger Man episode, The Traitor, as a guard on a train, as well as the 1961 episode Name, Date, and Place as Vogel. His character, Major Wilhelm Wilner, was also one of the few Germans to survive in Where Eagles Dare. He also appeared on the London stage, and he passed away in 1992 at the age of 79. Among his films include Beckett, Devil Doll, The Yellow Rolls Royce, Operation Crossbow, Amsterdam Affair, Subterfuge, Walk with Love and Death, The Kremlin Letter, Universal Soldier, 1972, The Greek Tycoon in 1978, and his very last film was Success is the Best Revenge, 1984 French-British drama directed by Jerzy Skolimowski and starring Michael York. It was entered into the 1984 Cannes Film Festival. And it was actually one of the first films that Hans Zimmer contributed and score to. So we are now 51 minutes and 54 seconds in Surprise Package. Well, we're now at the 52-minute mark, 52 minutes. And here we have his assistant, Dr. Panzer's assistant, known as Igor Trofim. And he's played by an actor named Alf Dean. Huge guy, really huge guy. that can't be him, could it? No. One moment. Okay. Yeah, okay. I found him. So this Alf Dean, this is one of his last movies. Not much about Alf Dean, although he is a unique looking individual, that's for sure. He was only in 13 films. He was only in 13 films. Woman for Joe, Bespoke Overcoat, Man of the Moment, Jumping for Joy, Double Cross, Charlie Moon, The Iron Petticoat, Up in the World, Dentist in the Chair, where he played a wrestler, Surprise Package, Three on a Spree, and his last film was Dentist on the Job in 1961. Oh, and here are all of Noel Coward's girlfriends, and I was going to talk about them real quick. There's one that's mentioned twice that she doesn't really have any dialogue, but I still feel the need to talk about her anyway. But one of the main girlfriends is named Constantia, Constancia, Constantia. And she is played by a woman named Marie Devereaux. Marie Devereaux was photographed partially nude when she was still a teenager. During the 1950s, she became a regular nude model in magazines, but she also had a brief career in films, usually playing sexy girls in comedies, dramas, and horror films, a few of which were directed by distinguished filmmakers. After appearing in Terrence Young's series Change, she was seen to good advantage in 3 Hammer film productions. First, under the direction of genre master Terence Fisher, she played a follower of goddess Kali in The Stranglers of Bombay, 1959, and she was one of the brides of Dracula in the same year of Strange Package in 1960. These were followed in 1962 by John Gilling's The Pirates of Blood River, in which she played a village girl. She was also in Guy Green's highly praised drama The Mark, 1961, and then traveled to Italy to work as Elizabeth Taylor's stand-in in Cleopatra, directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. Devereaux went to Hollywood after the production closed in Rome, and appeared in television in 2 cult movies directed by Samuel Fuller, Shock Corridor, 1963, and The Naked Kiss in 1964. After these roles, she decided to marry and have children in the United States and retired from films. Following Cleopatra, Marie could have had a great opportunity in mainstream cinema, probably leading to fame if Cassandra's Iliad had been made. Based on a screenplay by novelist Mario Puzo, the movie was to star Marlon Brando and narrate the classic Homer tale from the perspective of Cassandra, the Trojan Sibyl. Marie was meant to play this role, but the film was never made. Wow. Interesting. And well, she passed away in 2019 at the age of 79. And yeah, that's about it. She didn't do much more after that. Now, the other girlfriends that are in this movie of Noel Coward is Claire Gordon and Lisa Page. I was going to see real quick if there's anything on them. Claire Gordon passed away in 2015 at a nursing home. At the time, she was living in Egypt, but returned to London and underwent. But she basically only did 33 films. Movies like French Dressing, Great Catherine, Cool It Carol, Conga, Danger Man, Make Mine Mink, Never Let Go, The League of Gentlemen, I Only Arsed, where she played a harem girl. And the third girlfriend that's in the credits is a woman by the name of Lisa Page. So Claire Gordon is gone, and The other actress is wrong, but see, Lisa Page, the other. Well, and I counted four of them, but I was only able to get three names here. But and she only has 11 credits, including The Unstoppable Man, Why Bother to Knock, and of course, Surprise Package. So yeah, the girlfriends of Noel Coward in this movie didn't do much else, but apparently the one that played uh, much bigger. Okay, brief. Okay, so now 58 minutes, 58:12 in Surprise Package. Minutes to go. We have 40 minutes to go. Even though this movie is only 99 minutes, it does to be perfect, feel like 2 hours. Now, cinematography of Surprise Packages, courtesy of a man by the name of Christopher Callis. And admittedly, it's very good. I mean, even though I've said it one more time, this film would have massively benefited from being in color. But he was a British cinematographer who worked on more than 70 feature films from the 1940s onwards. Born in 1919 and passed away in 2012 at the age of 93. After working as a camera operator on several films for Powell and Pressburger, he made his debut as a director of photography on The End of the River, 1947, one of their projects as producers. After filming of The End of the River concluded, Challis was camera operator under Jack Cardiff on The Red Shoes. Ooh. He did not object to the demotion as he wanted to work on the film. Following this, he went back to being director of photography, cinematographer on most of Powell and Pressburger's later films, including The Small Back Room, The Elusive Pimpernel, The Tales of Hoffman, O Rosalinda, The Battle of the River Plate, and Ill Met by Midnight. His expertise in color cinematography meant that he was frequently chosen by British filmmakers of the 50s to work on their projects, and he worked on a number of successful comedies, including Genevieve, The Captain's Table, and Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines. He worked on projects in other genres as well, such as Spanish Gardener, the war film Sink the Bismarck, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and Billy Wilder's The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. He was nominated for several BAFTA awards for Best British Cinematography and won for Stanley Donen's film Arabesque. He won a BAFTA for cinematography for the 1966 movie Arabesque, directed by Stanley Donen and starring Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren. Never seen it, but it's got a pretty good reputation, pretty good history and reputation. Interesting. Challis is credited with being the first person to create specifically modeled 5,000-watt senior luminaries to provide cinematic lighting underwater while filming The Deep in 1976. And I actually have a copy of The Deep right there, courtesy of Via Vision Entertainment. Highly recommended. There's a great commentary on there by Ileana Douglas, the actress, which is really, really good. Challis is credited with being the first person to create... Martin Scorsese said, quote, "It is not possible to even begin to take full measure of the greatness of British filmmaking without thinking of Chris Challis. And Chris Challis brought a vibrancy to the celluloid palette that was entirely his own, and which helped make Britain a leader in the long, glorious period of classic world cinema," unquote. Well, that's quite the Scorsese quote right there. Challis was also an accomplished and enthusiastic still photographer. He joined the Royal Photographic Society in 1936, gaining his associateship in 1945 and fellowship in 1948. And he remained a member until his death. So that's the cinematographer Christopher Challis. And here Noel Coward is meeting Mitzi Gaynor. Oh, man, does she look good. She does look good. Even in black and white, she looks Just incredibly, incredibly radiant. You just can't keep your eyes on her. Here again, the lighting. I'm not going to be specific, but just saying the lighting, she was lit very, very, very well in this movie. Very, very well. Now, the music of the movie was done courtesy of a man by the name of Benjamin Frankel, who was a British composer. Best known pieces include a cycle of 5-string quartets, 8 symphonies, and concertos for violin and viola. He was also notable for writing over 100 film scores and working as a big band arranger in the 30s. During the last 15 years of his life, Frankel also developed his own style of 12-note composition, which retained contact and tonality. Born in London in 1906, spent 6 months in Germany in 1922. By the early 30s, Frankel was in demand as an arranger and musical director in London, working with several dance bands. Wrote several popular dance band arrangements for Henry Hall's BBC Dance Orchestra, including Learn to Croon, Don't Blame Me, Weep No More, My Baby, April in Paris, and In Town Tonight. Wrote many arrangements and scores for theater and film music, but gave up theater work in 1944. He did, however, retain an interest in film composing until his death. These included Seventh Veil, Man in the White Suit, The Importance of Being Earnest, The Night of the Iguana, and Battle of the Bulge, as well as the first British serial film score to The Curse of the Werewolf, 1 year after Surprise Package in 1961. During and after the war, Frankel started to become widely known as a composer of works in traditional classical form. One of the first to gain attention is Sonata No. 1 for solo violin of 1942, which was dedicated to the Austrian-born violinist. Russell made a premiere recording in 1944. He went on to perform Frankel's most famous work, the Violin Concerto, in memory of the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust. Commissioned for the 1951 Festival of Britain and was a soloist in the Viola Concerto for BBC radio broadcast in 70 and 72. In 19 succeeded Edward Clark as chairman of the International Society for Contemporary Music, and that year is chairman. Clark alleged that Frankel had accused him of fraud. Never made such a claim, but nevertheless said that such a claim, had he made it, would have been true. This amounted to slander as far as Clark was concerned, and he sued Frankel, calling the and Bernard Stevens as witnesses. While Frankel's alleged slander, his integrity was intact. Clark's wife, Elizabeth Lutyens, ever after referred to Frankel as composer and ex-colleague. He died in London on February 12, 1973, while working on the 3-act opera Marching Song and a 9th symphony, which had been commissioned by the BBC. When he died, Marching Song had been completed in short score. It was orchestrated by Buxton Orr, a composer who had studied with Frankel and whose advocacy has been at least partly responsible for the revival of interest in his works. In the 20 years following his death, Frankel's works were almost completely neglected. Thea King's landmark recording of the Clarinet Quintet with the Britain Quartet, released in 1991, was the first commercial recording of his music since his death. A major turning point, however, came in the mid-1990s when German record company CPO, Classic Production Osnabrück, decided to partner with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation to record Frankel's complete oeuvre. This allowed for the first time an appraisal of his output. CPO recorded all the symphonies, including Werner Andreas Albert, and all the string quartets by the Nomus Quartet, and in 1998 issued the world premiere recordings of the Violin Concerto, Viola Concerto, and Serenata Concertante. With recordings now available, BBC at Radio 3 featured him as the Composer of the Week, first in 1996, and again in 2006. And among his film scores, his first one was Radio Parade of 1935. Then he did Double Confession, The Man in the White Suit, The Net, not that net. The End of the Affair, Footsteps in the Fog, The Prisoner, Happy as the Bride, Libel. Surprise Package is one of his last films that he scored, by the way. But his last film was actually Battle of the Bulge, the 1965 epic that ran for 3 hours with Henry Fonda and Robert Shaw. I've never seen it personally, but yep. Okay, so it's right here in this scene, and this is a frustration right here. Mitzi Gaynor actually says it's so beautiful, it's like a Technicolor movie. Oh man, like what you wouldn't give to see this movie in Technicolor. But here again, you just had to tease us like that, almost troll us like that. I mean, why? Why? You know, it's 1960, and you got a expert color cinematographer. There's no reason why this had to be in black and white. The only reason I can think of is that the producer just didn't have enough faith in the movie to sell, and he wanted to save as much money as possible. I mean, he probably thought, hey, I got Yul Brenner and Mitzi Gaynor and Noel Coward, slam dunk. But no, this movie only made 1.1 million, which I would imagine either it's a flop or a bomb. Either way, I don't know what the budget is, but but something tells me it was a little bit more than $1 million. And finally, last but not least, as far as the crew, I should talk about the editor, a man by the name of Jim Clark, British film editor and director. More than 40 feature films, directed 8 features and short films. Among his most recognized films are Midnight Cowboy, where he was a creative consultant, Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman, The Killing Fields, 1984, and Vera Drake. In 2011, Clark published Dream Repairman, Adventures in Film Editing, a memoir of his career, and he passed away in 2016 at the age of 84. He received an Academy Award and a BAFTA Award for the editing of The Killing Fields. And Clark was also nominated for BAFTA Awards for his editing on the films Marathon Man, Vera Drake. In 2005, Clark received the Career Achievement Award. Responding to a question about the major influences on his editing, Clark said, looking back over many years, the American cinema of the 40s was very important to me, along with Hitchcock films and early British comedies with actors like Will Hay and George Formby. Music has also played a major role. It influences the rhythm of my editing. The pacing of a film and its dialogue have a lot to do with the music, and the act of going from one shot to another has always fascinated me. When and how you do it, the reason for an edit. As a director, he was responsible for Every Home Should Have One, Rent-A-Dick, and Madhouse in 1974. Clark's collaboration with director John Schlesinger extended over about 16 years and 8 films. Midnight Cowboy and Marathon Man are among their most recognized. Hugh A. Robertson is credited as the editor of Midnight Cowboy, with Clark being a creative consultant. Robertson won the BAFTA Award for Best Editing and was nominated for the Academy Award for Film Editing on Midnight Cowboy. Mm-hmm. So we are coming up on 1 hour and 11 minutes. 1 hour and 11 minutes into Surprise Package. And we have approximately 28 minutes left to go. And one of the last things I was going to talk about was actually Yul Brenner. When I've run out of everything else to talk about, Yul Brenner was supposed to be the last one. Well, let's go ahead and do this instead. Over at IMDb, and here again, this is another film that is rarely seen, rarely screened. And over at IMDb, there's only 15 reviews. There's only 15 reviews, and to be honest, most of them are on the negative. But actually do like the film. There's only one scene where Yul Brenner is not seen smoking. His last appearance was in a anti-smoking commercial. Yep. So yeah, news here. this to come up. Putting the blanket over here over shot as well. Like I said, all the shots out with only 20 minutes left to go here. That would not be good. Here we go. Okay. King Coward, 5 out of 10. Okay. All right. I didn't get kicked out, but that we are now at 1 hour and 14 minutes. 1 hour and 14 minutes in the surprise package. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. If I get kicked out because of the tech issues I've been having today, I'm not going to finish this commentary. I'm just going to let it lie because there's not much else to say. There's really not much else to say about surprise package. But going back to the IMDb review that I was reading, 5 out of 10, King Coward. Charlton Heston in his memoirs said that when he was signing for his part in Touch of Evil, it was mentioned that Orson Welles was going to be playing the sheriff, but that Universal still hadn't selected a director. Well, says Heston, why don't you get Orson Welles to direct? Duh, says the studio heads. That's a splendid idea. On Surprise Package, with none other than Noel Coward in the cast, why didn't they get him to take charge of the whole thing? It is amazing to me that with all the talent in this project, a better product didn't emerge. This is a caper film involving a deported U.S. gangster played by Brenner, now living on a Greek island trying to steal the crown of the exiled king of Anatolia, played by Coward. Along for the ride is Mitzi Gaynor as Brenner's Maul, and the baddie played by George Coulouris from the People's Republic of Anatolia, the gang that overthrew the king. The director is Stanley Donen from a novel by humorist Art Buchwald. Brenner is terribly miscast in his part. Yes. 100%. A gangster I can believe him as, but he just has no flair for comedy. There were some comic moments in The King and I, but that's overall a serious part. Coward looks bored by the whole thing. I wished he had scripted and directed it also, and he probably wished he did as well. George Coulouris was his usual menacing self. Mitzi Gaynor was a fine musical talent who came along just when musical films were ending. She was probably grateful for a number or two in this film. Well, there's only one. Jimmy Van Heusen and Sammy Cahn wrote the title tune, which he sings as well as Noel Coward. Can you imagine if he had contributed some musical numbers as well? The script has some topical references to the Cold War, the Appalachian Underworld Gathering, rigged quiz shows, etc., that Buell and the cast comment on. It also would have been nice, since this takes place in the Greek islands, to have splurged for some Technicolor. Yes. I said that 6 times throughout this commentary, but yeah, it bears worth repeating. Universal. 4 out of 10. Ooh. If Brenner got paid per word, he'd be a millionaire. In this fast-talking, mostly comical movie, Yul Brynner plays an American gangster, Nico March, and dressed appropriately for the part, that has been deported to the country. Along for the ride is his goody two-shoes Mitzi Gaynor, and they are living the boring life of visitors on Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. We are now 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 20 seconds into surprise package. Hopefully, I'll get through this last 20 minutes without being kicked out again. One commentary already got compromised today. I'm not going to let this one be, because this commentary has been too good. If you are reading this review without watching the movie, then you may believe it is a nice semi-mystery and cunning portrayal of the criminal mind. Perhaps it would have been a better movie had the writers decided to go that way. Instead, we have Brenner and Gaynor playing a comedy team that was so ill-matched, it took away from the entire story. When a person thinks of Yul Brenner, comedy does not come to mind, nor does comedy come to mind in this presentation. First of all, some people have a hard time clearly understanding the words that Brenner speaks. Now throw in Brenner speaking like the fast-talking FedEx commercial man, and even the most noted linguist teacher would have a problem with the dialogue. Very, very true. Very well said. Mitzi Gaynor added very little to the script by just playing the sweet, unintelligent girlfriend and doing nothing that caused interest to the character. The only time that the viewer really takes notice of Gaynor is when she, along with Coward, is singing the title song Surprise Package, and that comes way too late to help the movie. Yes. It's coming up. It's coming up. It's the best part of the movie, and to be perfectly honest, it's not, it doesn't save the movie by any stretch. No. It's almost put in there out of desperation. Almost. I can almost sense it was put in there out of desperation, just to, we got to put something in this movie that's music oriented. Not to take anything away from Yul Brenner, but he appeared to be miscast. Perhaps another actor could have helped with the interest of this film, but that is a moot point. But I will say that the movie did have some nice one-liners. Maybe two. Yeah, maybe two at best. Gangster Brenner is exiled back to a Greek island where he hatches a plan to steal the crown of the King Anatolia, played by Noel Coward. Underrated comedy with a sparkling script of witty one-liners delivered really well by Brenner. In support, Coward as well. Coward. And there's a nice turn by Guy Deggy as a thief who helps Brenner. Best of all is Mitzi Gaynor, who plays Brenner's Maul. Her performance is wonderful as she, making this all in all really quite a charming film. The only bum note that the Coward Gaynor title song duet could have done without that. Well, now, see, he's the opposite. I thought the only thing good about this movie was the song duet between Coward and Gaynor. Yeah. 8 out of 10, expressive esoterica. Okay. Arnold Schwarzenegger has gained a wholly unmerited reputation for being able to play comedy precisely because he's so unfunny that he looks even more ludicrous than usual in a comic setting. And Yul Brenner's utter charmlessness actually enhances this Runyon-esque comedy, which makes good use of Greek locations and a game cast of Britons ranging from Warren Mitchell to Noel Coward. Now, if you want to see a real Damon Runyon film, get Bloodhounds of Broadway. Yeah, that's a much better one. Damned by Andrew Saras is nervously over-verbalized. The constant stream of witty dialogue, courtesy of screenwriter Harry Kurnitz and or original novelist Art Buchwald, is actually a delight. Disagree. Particularly as delivered by Coward as a deposed king in exile, surrounded evidently with tongue-in-cheek by a harem of voluptuous young blondes in bikinis, who also performs the title song with Mitzi Gaynor, displaying a shapely chassis and succession of eye-popping outfits befitting a gangster's maul. 4 out of 10, hardly Donen's finest hour. Stanley Donen may have been the producer and director, and the stars might be Yul Brenner and Mitzi Gaynor, as well as Noel Coward. But this comedy is a British production, filmed mostly on the island of Rhodes, and shot not in picture postcard color, but in black and white. The thin plot has deported gangster Brenner planning to steal exiled King Noel Coward's crown, and the largely British cast includes George Colaris, Warren Mitchell, Lyndon Brooke, and Eric Pullman as a corrupt police chief. Brenner does his best, but he's not a natural comic actor, and this is one of his poorest performances, and try as he might, even as a miscast Coward can do nothing with the mostly limp material, though at least he does stop the show when he sings the title song, which is still coming. Film's real surprise is Gaynor as Brenner's Maul. She's no actress, but okay, I disagree with that. She is most definitely an actress, but she sure is sprightly in that perky Mitzi Gaynor way of hers. Okay, I didn't write that. It's not terrible. In fact, it's quite amusing in a very daft way, but it's hardly Donen's finest hour. A rare misfire for the director, 4 out of 10. Let's see, Nico, you didn't earn the money, you stole it. Beware before you open the surprise package. It's a stink bomb, 2 out of 10. and here again, repeating everything else that everybody else has said. First of all, if you're going to have a film set in Greece, you have to have the opportunity to film it in color. That's an instant sign that little faith and even less budget was put in this hideous, foul-smelling, cheesy comedy about Greek-born Yul Brenner, who's playing a guys and dolls type of mobster, as if he was screaming to the last row in a second-string musical theater playhouse. Just as embarrassing as Mitzi Gaynor is as Maul, perhaps perfect casting for Adelaide in Guys and Dolls, but under the direction of the usually brilliant Stanley Donen, two of my favorite stars, two of my favorites from this era, come off looking truly foolish, as if they were purposely trying to sink their own careers. 4 out of 10, waste of talent. You can only wonder why you bothered to make such a woefully unfunny film. 8 out of 10, good surprise. 7 out of 10, I love you, Brenner. 5 out of 10, unremarkable little black and white caper. 4 out of 10, hardworking, colorless, and unimpressive. 2 out of 10, an unpleasant surprise. And finally, another Pepe Lamoco. Yeah, and like I said, a lot of these reviews are complaining about the fact it's not in color when it's screaming to be in color, and that Yul Brenner is miscast. And I agree with both of those sentiments. Now, probably the one I agree with the most is actually Derek Winnert, who reviewed Surprise Package in 2021, gave it only 2 stars, which may be slightly generous, but I pretty much agree with everything he says here. Producer-director Stanley Donen's 1960 British film Surprise Package is an off-the-wall comedy set on a Greek semi-tropical island, which is home to both a New York hoodlum, Nico March, and a European royal family ruled by King Pavel II. Brenner wants to buy Coward's crown jewels, but instead of sending him money, his U.S. Bob sends him Surprise Package Gabby Rogers. Wait a minute, is Mitzi Gaynor supposed to be the surprise package of the movie? Okay. Okay. With its pretty bizarre and always unlikely plot line, New York satirist Art Buchwald's novel, A Gift from the Boys, is transferred to the screen in a typically heavy-handed, slack manner by screenwriter Harry Kurnitz. However, there's cheerful acting all around, in particular from Brenner, who, although ill-suited to this form of comedy, still gives it his best shot, and of course, Coward and Gaynor are appealing. It really needs color, but Christopher Chow shoots in black and white, though at least there's sharp, pacey direction from Donen, whose early success with musicals such as On the Town and Singing in the Rain was never repeated in his dramatic output, though Charade and Two for the Road are very likable and memorable. It was made in October 1959 at Shepperton Studios, and it also features, Maurice Binder's opening credits are an animation of the 3 stars avoiding gangsters and bullets. The theme song, Surprise Package by Sammy Kahn and Jimmy Van Heusen, is sung by a vocal chorus over the credits. But as you can see right now, Noel, Coward, and Mitzi Gaynor are here again. This duet with Mitzi and Noel is the best part of the movie, and it comes way, way too late. I love the dress. This is nothing special. I don't know anything really special. But here again, a duet between Noel Coward and Mitzi Gaynor. That's about as much as we can get out of this movie because, like I said, hardly any laughs. Okay. All right. We're now at 1 hour and 30 minutes. We are 1 hour and 30 minutes into surprise package, and we have approximately 9 minutes left to go. If I get kicked out again, I apologize. I am not going to edit this or delete it or anything like that. I'm just going to let it go because there's just not much more to say about surprise package. In fact, the only other thing I was going to talk about when it comes to surprise package, because we've covered everything else, is Yul Brenner himself. But he was a Russian-born actor known professionally as Yul Brenner. Best known for his portrayal of King Mongkut in the Rodgers and Hammerstein stage musical The King and I, for which he won 2 Tony Awards, and he later won Best Actor for the film. He played the role 4,625 times on the stage and became known for his shaved head, which he maintained as a personal trademark long after adopting it for The King and I. Considered one of the first Russian-American film stars, he was honored with the ceremony to put his handprints in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood in 1956 and received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960, the same year as Surprise Package. He received the National Board of Review Award for Best Actor for the Cecil B. DeMille epic The Ten Commandments. He also was well known as the gunman Chris Adams in The Magnificent Seven and the first sequel, Return of the Seven, along with roles as the android gunslinger in Westworld, which we will probably do a commentary on, maybe not this year, but soon. It's a 1973 film by Michael Crichton that I'm very interested in watching. And he's also in the sequel Future World. In addition to his film credits, he's also worked as a model and photographer and was the author of several books. And he passed away in 1985 at the age of 65. Let's see. After Surprise Package, he tried another film with Stanley Donen called Once More with Feeling, also the same year as Surprise Package. It was a British comedy with Kay Kendall in her final film appearance. Oh, interesting. Kay Kendall had co-starred with Mitzi Gaynor in Les Girls. They did that together in 1957, but this was actually her last movie before she passed away very, very young at the age of 32, as a matter of fact. But we will talk about Kay Kendall. We will talk about her in detail when we do our commentary for Les Girls, which I believe at this moment is going to be the very last commentary that I do for this particular series. Although the public received them well in The Magnificent Seven, a Western adaptation of Seven Samurai, the picture proved a disappointment on its initial release in the U.S. However, it was hugely popular in Europe, has had enduring popularity. Its ultimate success led to Brenner signing a 3-picture deal with the Marish brothers. The film was especially popular in the Soviet Union, where it sold 67 million tickets. He then made a cameo in Goodbye Again in 1961, and then he focused on action films. Escape from Zarain with Ronald Neame as director, Taurus Bulba with Tony Curtis for J. Lee Thompson, and both films were commercial disappointments. The first film under Brenner's 3-picture deal with Marish was Flight from Ashia with George Chakiris, followed by The Kings of the Sun, also with Chakiris, directed by Thompson. Neither film was particularly popular, nor was Invitation to a Gunfighter in 1964. Brenner enjoyed a hit with Return of the Seven, reprising his role from the original, and then less popular were Triple Cross, a war movie with Christopher Plummer, The Double Man, a spy thriller, The Long Duel, an Imperial adventure tale opposite Trevor Howard, Villa Rides, a western, and File the Golden Goose. Brenner went on to Yugoslavia to star in a war film Battle of Neretva. He supported Katharine Hepburn in the big-budget flop The Madman of Chaillot. Brenner appeared in Drag as a torch singer in an unbilled role in the Peter Sellers comedy The Magic Christian. Brenner went to Italy to make a spaghetti western, Adios Sabata, and supported Kirk Douglas in The Light of the Edge of the World. Kirk Douglas will actually be the star of our last Mitzi Gaynor movie, For Love or Money. He remained in lead roles for Romance of a Horse Thief and the western Catlow. And Brenner had a small role in Fuzz, 1972, then reprised his most famous part in the TV series Anna and the King, which ran for 13 episodes. After Night Flight from Moscow in Europe, Brenner created one of his most iconic roles in the cult film Westworld as the gunslinger, a killer robot. His next two films were variations on his performance, The Ultimate Warrior and Future World. He returned to Broadway in Home Sweet Homer, a notorious flop musical, and his final movie was Death Rage in 1976, an Italian action movie. On September 28th, 2012, a 2.4 meter tall statue was inaugurated at Yul Brenner Park in front of the home where Brenner was born at Alutskaya Street, number 15, in Vladivostok, Russia. Created by local sculptor Alexei Boki, the monument was carved in granite monolith that was acquired in China and delivered to Vladivostok. The grounds for the park were donated by the city of Vladivostok, which also paid additional costs. Vladivostok Mayor Igor Pushkaryov, U.S. Consul General Sylvia Curran, and Brenner's son Rock participated in the ceremony, along with hundreds of local residents. The Brenner Family College in suburban Vladivostok is now a Yul Brenner museum. And finally, in 2022, a podcast was launched celebrating his filmography entitled Here's Looking at Yul, Kid, and has included guests such as Ron Howard. Wow. Very, very impressive. But like I said, this is not one of Yul Brenner's best movies. In fact, it'll probably go down as one of his worst movies. If I was going to actually look at his entire filmography, yeah, I'm sure Surprise Package would be down at the bottom. So, yeah, it's kind of a shame. I mean, this is just a very, 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 very forgettable movie that has hardly anything worth recommending. Again, Mitzi looks great with the jewels around her neck and everything, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. This film, it promises so much and it delivers practically nothing. And that's the biggest disappointment of all. You got a quality director, quality actors, and they do not deliver. Try as they might, they do not deliver. And here again, I blame the script, and I also blame the original book by Art Buchwald. It's not funny, and it's just not amusing in the slightest. I mean, admittedly, I wasn't around in 1960, so maybe I would have understood and enjoyed this more. But in 2023, this is a waste of time. With all due respect to the actors and the crew members, this movie is a waste of time. It just is. The only reason why I'm not putting it below For Love or Money, though, as Mitzi Gaynor's worst movie, is at least in this movie, she is, given a little bit, she's given a little bit of attention, a little bit of, a little bit of singing, a little bit more to do. Because in For Love or Money, oh boy, when we get to that one, that is going to be quite the ordeal. I mean, in comparison, Surprise Package is basically, a nothing burger, while For Love or Money is, a burger that just doesn't taste very good. I think that's the bar that we're looking at here, and that's how low this is. And this is such a lame ending right here. 1 minute ago, Mitzi was passing out, and now she's, back working with Yul, and they're making their money, and they're doing what they do, and that's about it. That's the end of Surprise Package. Literally, it just ends. It just like, what was the point of all that? There was no, an amazingly disappointing movie. But that was Surprise Package. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it, but you've been warned. And just to let everybody know, my next commentary will be tomorrow at 6 p.m., maybe a little later, depending upon if I have to read more of the book. But we should be doing The I Don't Care Girl from 1953, starring Mitzi Gaynor and David Wayne, which is about vaudeville legend Ava Tanguay. So that will be tomorrow night. Thank you very much for joining me for this commentary for Surprise Package.